Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I'm your host, Joel Lalgee. I'm excited to be with you guys again. We have another fantastic guest. We're going to talk about a topic that I'm excited to learn more about recruitment enablement. Recruiter enablement. I don't know. Maybe I need to even get the name right. But I'm excited to have our guest with us here, Molly Sly. Molly, welcome to the show. Why don't you just give everybody a quick introduction, who you are? I like to do this, who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And you can call it anything: recruiter enablement, recruiting enablement, TA enablement, talent acquisition enablement. We'll answer to anything. But yeah, so I'm Molly Sly. I'm based out of Detroit, Michigan. I have been recruiting for over over 20 years for sure, maybe 25. I don't even know.
Which
And I
in recruiting years, I mean, that's,
It's a
25
lot.
to
I
go
mean,
that long, it's
yeah,
pretty
that's
fantastic.
why my hair is gray. This happened 1 year into recruiting. Overnight it happened. But, yeah, I've been doing it forever, kind of everywhere. Started out consulting like I think everyone else does, or
Yeah.
working for an agency, and then moved in-house. Totally found that that was where my groove was. I liked dealing with hiring managers and the candidates, and then all the kind of other teams that get involved in these things. And so that was in Chicago where I started, moved back home to Michigan, and have been here pretty much ever since. Right now, I'm leading the recruiter enablement team, or we call it the TA enablement team at Sage. We have a small team of three. So there's three on my team, and we support probably 30 ish recruiters across the globe. And in terms of, like, I know a lot of people in the US, especially, might not know what Sage is, but in the UK, we're a UK based company. In the UK, we're so well known. So it's just it's interesting for me to know that. But Sage is a global company. We provide software solutions, SaaS products for small and mid-sized companies that essentially help them with their back office. So their accounting, their HR, payroll, those sorts of things. And we have 11,000 employees,
Wow.
and we've got clients in I think over 20 countries or something like that. So it's a really big company. I've been here for 4 years. Started out managing the recruiters on tech, product, marketing, and then when the enablement team came about, I've pretty much only had eyes for enablement ever since.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't know what, like, recruiter enablement is, because it is, I've heard probably more around, like, rec ops, which is more
Yeah.
like getting your systems in order, making sure you got the right tech stack. Recruiter enablement, TA enablement, what exactly is that? And, for anyone who isn't familiar with that area.
Mhm. I mean, I think the short definition is just enabling your recruiters to be able to do the very best that they can do without all of the kind of just knocking down barriers for them to be able to do the job as well as it can be done. And forgive me because clearly my words are not talking to my brain right now. But so it's around a couple things mainly. Like, it's making sure they have the right processes, the right tools, the right training. And so a lot of it is, us putting together content, us doing regular training, not just for the recruiters, but also for the hiring managers, because that's a big deal. I mean, the number of hiring managers in corporate America that have probably never had any sort of formal recruiting or interviewing training is really high. And then trying to figure out, why does this process take so long? What can we do to optimize it, to make it more efficient? Trying to keep an eye on technology that may be able to come in and, help the team out. Again, really, I think everyone right now is trying to do more with less. I think we hear that all the
Yeah.
time, especially with recruiting teams. And so having a team like ours, an enablement team, is really the way that you do that, because most recruiting organizations or teams, they don't everyone's busy filling jobs. And so no one's thinking about, wait, why this could be better. We could do this better. Or, oh, we need this kind of a guide, but nobody has the time to do that. So you have a team like ours, and we can do all that. We're the behind the curtains support to try to make things as easy as we can for the recruiters so that they can spend more time finding and engaging with great talent and less time, dealing with the mundane, like, administrative tasks and things of that nature.
Yeah, I love it. I was gonna ask you too, because I feel like the climate right now is exactly what you said, where it's like, let's get more done with less.
Mhm.
And so the trend that I've been seeing, I think we've all been seeing, is TA teams kind of getting smaller. And I think there was a Gem just published their it was
Paper.
like
Yep.
yeah, state of talent of 2025, and one of the like the reoccurring trends was, recruiting teams aren't necessarily having less work to do, but they're definitely getting smaller in size, like across the board. So even teams that are thinking about doing more hiring next year, they're not necessarily growing their headcount to accomplish that. So
Yeah. No.
when this role came open, like, because it seems a little bit counter trend to what's going on. So, like, do you know, like, the thought or, like, where they got the idea, where Sage got the idea for with this recruitment enablement team, and, like, where that came from?
Yeah, I don't know exactly because of course that was well above my level. I was just thrilled when I saw it because the weird thing about it is I had been exploring recruiter enablement for probably maybe starting 2 years ago. I think I saw a post about it and I was like, "What's that?" Because I was really a fixer, I would say. So once I was doing all the agency recruiting like we all do. And then once I got to be an in house recruiter, it was very much like, oh, why do we do it that way? Why does it take so
Mm,
many clicks? And then I just became the fixer and then kind of the triage recruiter at a lot of places where I went, where they'd say, listen, that team is not happy. We need you to go in there and work with them and try to turn things around. And so I think those mindsets just absolutely were grooming me for a role in enablement. Or like Johnny, I think was the one that was talking to me about Johnny Campbell about TA operations. So different from rec ops, which like you said is very systems focused. TA operations, the more he was talking about it, the more I was like, that's what my team does. I would say we're more probably TA operations because we do truly anything that is not filling up roles falls on
yeah.
my team. So whether it's metrics and analytics or training or vendors or, really anything. And I'm already realizing now that I've just gone off on a tangent, but you were talking, what was, what was the
Yeah.
question?
N No, I guess just, like, it kinda
Oh,
goes
what
against the
important things to do.
trend.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to assume because exactly that. They knew we needed to be able to do more with less. And so I'm just thrilled that they decided to build this team out. And as soon as I saw the posting for it, I was raising my hands and jumping up and down because I was
Love
just
that.
like, what are the odds of it happening so soon after I had started learning about it and reaching out to people in the market doing it and asking them questions about it. So I think that's probably what propelled us to do it. I think that's what will likely propel more companies to do it because even when I first started, I would do a search on LinkedIn for recruiter enablement, TA enablement, whatever. And I mean, less than 100 results
Wow.
will come back. And now it's still not a lot. I mean, it's still surprisingly small, but it's certainly grown in hundreds since I first looked a year and a half ago.
I would imagine too with, kinda even looking at those rec ops type roles, because I know that's been increasing as well, where you're looking at what's the technology and what are the systems. How much of that overlap in your role in terms of looking at tech and looking at systems, like, how much of your role is around that, and how much time do you spend looking at, particularly with AI, like, what
Mhm.
recruiters could be using to become more efficient? Because I know that's, like, the promise of AI, right? It's like
Right.
0 admin recruitment.
I
So how
mean,
much
that's
of how much of your
true.
time do you spend doing that?
To be honest with you, very little. And I say that because we are on a much larger scale looking for some software to come in. And so until that happens, we're sort of on hold to bring in any new tools because we don't know exactly what we're bringing in yet and what it might deliver. So what I have been doing more of is because we're a Microsoft shop. So we have Copilot and
Yeah,
we have the ability for the recruiters to transcribe their interviews and get the summary notes or transcribe their kickoff strategy calls with their hiring managers. So what we're trying to do is arm our recruiters with as much knowledge about how they can use the AI tools that we have available to us right now to make their lives easier, to save them time. I put together a bunch of prompts that they can use because we all know when a hiring manager gives you a job description, it's been around for 300 years. It's been passed to 14 different people, and everyone just adds 5 bullets and passes it on. So we've kind of gotten this rule now where we say, don't ever post whatever they give you, you don't post that. You're going to rework that with them. You're going to ask some questions, clarify, and then you're going to make it, make it sound like you're talking to someone. So we want it to sound like, not just trying to use a bunch of big words, and we want it to be engaging for candidates. We also want them to know pretty quickly because I think they look at something for 18 seconds before they decide if they're moving on. So we have this last year, I'd say, really put a lot of effort into helping the recruiters be able to do that without having to sit down and spend an hour rewriting a job posting to make it more appropriate and accurate. So have, providing them with prompts that like, hey, they give you a ton of bullets. Here's the prompt you can put in to ChatGPT or Copilot and say that, can you please make this a job posting? And we want it to be written in, gender neutral and inclusive language. And we want it to start with kind of a grabbing selling proposition of what's in it for them. And you know what I mean? So you really can play with that. So I'm spending more time doing that because at the moment I can't be in the market for new technology. But hopefully that's coming.
Yeah, and I mean, I love that anyway. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of tools out there that, help with especially with, like, the interview transcription, interview
Mhm.
intelligence. I feel like that's definitely been a big use case for AI. What are some of the challenges that your team has been facing? And curious just to know, even just globally since you're doing, you've got a global team.
Mhm.
Are the challenges, yeah, I hear a lot of recruiters right now are getting just bombarded with applications. Is that what we're seeing globally as well? Also hearing a lot about like fraudulent candidates and candidates that, maybe appear like they're a real person,
Yeah.
and then they get into the interview and it's AI, and we kind of got a whole bunch of that going on as well. Is that
Yeah.
what we're seeing globally, or what are some of the challenges you're seeing
We're
globally?
we're not seeing that as much globally. At least I'm not hearing about it as much. We have heard about it a little bit more recently, not to the point where somebody's truly like not the person that they say they are, but like definitely the fraudulent applicants, the increase in applicants, because now people can just create multiple resumes with AI and just start shooting them off blindly. So we're certainly seeing that. I would say challenges that we have are, they're varied and they change quite a bit, but we are a global team. So we have 30 recruiters and they recruit globally. So they might live in the UK, but they're filling positions in Spain and Portugal or, India, UK, Canada, wherever it is. I think we recruit in maybe 13 or 14 different countries. So we didn't know how to do that. If you didn't live in that country or hadn't recruited in it before, we didn't even know where to start in terms of
Mm.
what are the rules, with work council in so many countries and job postings. What can you put in them? What can't you put in them? What are the legal ramifications? What's the currency? And also the branding of Sage. Like I was saying, if I go to Sage in the UK and I have my Sage backpack, everyone knows where I'm from or where I work. But over here, people, in the US don't know about it as much. Now that's getting better. It's definitely we're growing our brand over here. We
Shout out to the
sponsor
marketing team.
yeah, right. Well, we sponsor Major League Baseball now, so if you're watching a baseball game in the US, you'll see sometimes the Sage
Oh yeah,
logo and stats. So we're certainly growing the brand in the US, but if we're doing it in Spain, the recruiter needs to know, how do people know us? Or is
yeah.
this gonna be a tough sell, an easy sell? What do candidates care about? What do they wanna know about? What do they, because everything is so wildly different when you're talking about going across borders. So that has been a struggle, and we put all this effort at the very beginning into building out these regional playbooks so that if you were assigned a role that was in a country you've never been to, you would go to our SharePoint, you'd open up that country and you'd see that document and any other supporting, if we have documents about the benefits there, whatever it is. But so that was a year and a half ago, and we just now put on our list of things to do that like we probably need to go back and audit those because things change so quickly. So, for example, now in France, all hiring managers, interviewers, and recruiters have to take training around bias, and and so that's something that we're looking at because we didn't know about that before, and so we're trying to figure out what the training can be, on that. So, or discrimination and bias, et cetera. So, with the interview process, so things change so quickly that it's not like we can just say, we made those playbooks, now we're done. It's like you just have to go back now and probably double check to make sure has anything changed? Is it accurate? Is it helpful enough?
Well, I know even with, AI, I know you mentioned you're not necessarily looking at tools, but I'm sure you're thinking about the regulations in Europe are different than the US. So if you're managing a
There
global
are, yeah.
team, even just thinking about HRIS system you're gonna use or what ATS you're gonna use and how AI is being used, I mean, it varies country to country,
Mhm.
um, you've gotta think about that. So I would assume then part of your job then in creating playbooks is to just make it easy then so recruiters don't have to ask the question, or if they do have a question, they have resources and they're
Yeah.
able to go to those resources right away. I'm curious, like in terms of putting together those playbooks, I mean, what does that look like and how did you get started with that? I mean, obviously there was a point where you didn't have that.
Mhm.
Um, did you already have, like, some kind of framework put together, or is that just your team just built it? And, like, how I guess what
Yeah,
areas
no,
did you start on?
we just built and we had to do it quick because it was like we went global and then boom, these recruiters didn't have what they needed. So it's not pretty. I would probably be embarrassed to show you. It's just Word documents, but we tried to think of what are all the things that I would need to know if I was going to recruit somewhere else. And so we certainly met with recruiters and we were asking them, what do you need to know? And then we went and interviewed people in those countries or people who had recruited in that country. So if you were a recruiter in Spain, I would ask you all of these questions, and then I would say, "What am I not asking you that somebody would need to know?" So it was certainly a very much a team effort, kind of getting everyone involved to say, "What are we forgetting? What are we not thinking about?" Like trying to figure out for recruiters that are going to source and they don't know the area at all, how far out from the office location can they search? Or is it miles, kilometers, or is it city center? Are people taking public transportation? There's like, there's really a lot to think about. So it was just very much kind of trial and error. But essentially, then we would just interview people in our company, even if it was HR or a people services person in, for example, Romania, we don't have a recruiter there. So heavily relied on our HR business partner in Romania to get a lot of the information about how things need to work and how candidates want to be approached or not approached and how to work with hiring managers in these locations. So we had to do it quickly. And we just kind of went with, I think we said there's 13 locations. So we said, what's most critical? So we had phase one, two, and three. And we kind of split it up so that we were making sure that we were going as quickly as we could to where it was going to make the biggest impact,
I love
but
that. So
not the prettiest.
so in terms of, like, kind of building it and going along, is it then like, how much are you leaning on the recruitment team to kinda help with the efforts in terms of what they need to know? Like, is it kind of like a living document, or I guess how do you
Yeah.
figure out, like, what's most important? And then,
Mhm.
as things come up, like, how can recruiters kinda communicate that to your team or just say, "Hey, this is helpful,"
Sure.
and how do you
Yeah.
kinda control that?
So we're really, first of all, we're really approachable. And when we first started this team, someone I think I mentioned to you that I was going around asking other professionals, "How do you do enablement? I see it's in your
Mm.
title. Can I pick your brain?" And someone had told me, "The first thing you should do is go on a listening tour. Don't assume you know what's broken. Go check in with the recruiters." And so that was really great advice. And so we, at the very beginning, we just did, I think we had a much smaller team then, maybe 20. We set up some small group sessions with 4 or 5 recruiters, made sure we didn't get all the ones that talk a lot and the ones that never speak. We really tried to mix it up because I wanted to hear from everyone.
Yeah.
How do you do things? What's your biggest pain point? What kind of training do you feel like you need? How can we help support you? Those kinds of questions. And so we do check-ins quite regularly with the recruiters. They ping me anytime they want to talk about something. We also spent a ton of time at the beginning and built out a SharePoint site, which looks very much just like a link repository, but that's what I wanted because I wanted one place for them to get anything they need. Anything they
Yeah.
need to do their job, if it's a template or directions, a process map, it's all on our SharePoint. And they don't have to click into folders and see if they're looking for the right thing. They can just, it's all set up based on what it is. They click on the link, they've got access to it. So that's where we keep all of our, we've got our main resources up here and then our regional resources down here, which is where they will go for all the country specific information that they need. And then from a global perspective, I think we try to have a global standardized process so that recruiters just know what's expected across the board. But of course, there's always going to be little things that can't be global. So you do it this way as much as you can, but then of course it comes down to local as well and what can or can't you do. So for example, we are a hybrid workplace now. And so we don't hire remotely. We're hiring people that will work in one of our offices, ideally 3 days a week. But there are still, I think, possibly one, if not two countries where we're still going through work council and like you can't put that on a job posting. But all of our other job postings, we like to put that right at the top because we don't want to waste anyone's time. We know there's still a lot of candidates out there that do not want to go into an office, even if it's only a few days a week. So,
Are
so
you still seeing that even in this market?
oh yeah, yeah, you'd be shocked. I mean, I'm curious if you've been hearing that from others, but we still absolutely see it. The office could be 10 miles from their house. And now, obviously, if they're not working, that's a different story. But if they're still working, people really want to hold out for remote, but you and I, I'm sure, have both seen that the remote opportunities are just getting smaller and smaller.
Dwindling. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the roles that I'm recruiting for, executive level roles in HR, I think hybrid is most of what I'm seeing now.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think, funnily enough, I think some of that is kind of driven by culture, maybe potentially even, controlling people. I mean, but I think people do seem like they want more community, but I also think that, it really depends. It's really hard to nail it down. Like, I still have to ask candidates what their preference is.
Hmm.
I guess it just surprises me because I've even just seen within the content space and seeing a lot of people who do content, recruitment content and HR content. I've seen a lot less talk probably in the last 6 months to a year around remote work. And I've
Right.
seen, like, younger demographics, they wanna be in the office. They're like, "Hey, I wanna learn. I wanna be able to."
And
uh
yeah, I think they need to be. I mean, I have a 23-year-old who's in her first job, and when they first interviewed her, it was gonna be remote, but then it was 5 days in the office
Oh,
or it was
wow.
gonna be hybrid. Then it was 5 days in the office, but I was just telling her, I think there's so much that you learn, just about corporate America and how to be in meetings and how to interact with people that I would never have learned sitting in my home
Yeah.
office. Like, there's just so much to be said for everything that you pick up by being around a bunch of professionals and also just learning different parts of the business. So I do think the young people, it really behooves them to get into an office at least a few days a week. But yeah, we're still definitely seeing holdouts that don't want to go into offices.
What about, like, globally? Is there a big difference in what people are looking for out of positions, whether it's, compensation, work-life balance, those types of things? Are there, like, trends that you just see across the board, or are there big differences, just thinking about really from, like a US perspective, to the rest of the world? Do you kinda see similar things? And then my follow-up question to that is, like, how do you create that employer brand to where you're able to kind of hit those different areas, or do you have to think differently about different places that you're recruiting for? I know it's kind of a long
Yeah.
question.
So it's a good question. And I will say, I don't think I'm close enough to the day to day recruiting to be able to answer it. But I will say that generally, I think the one thing that came out of COVID is that everybody realized how valuable their time is. And so I think across the board, people tend to be a little bit more flexible on, caring most about salary. If there's some flexibility or their commute is shorter, you know what I mean? I still think we've all kind of changed from that perspective. And I can't think of hearing about any one country that's wildly different than the
Although,
rest.
no, China, they there's that new
Well,
trend
and
now.
we don't recruit there. So yeah.
Have
So,
you seen that trend that's come out? It's like the 996, I think it's called.
no.
Yeah, it's basically where you wear, and I guess it's coming over here now, or it's trending upwards.
What is it?
It's called the 996 trend. It's essentially where you work from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6
Ooh,
days a week.
no, thank you. I'll take a
I
hard pass on that. They can keep
know.
it. I will take a hard pass on that. No, I don't love that. And I do think Sage has really great we have really the colleagues are amazing. There's 11,000 people, and anytime I get to go to the offices, which I love because I am remote. I was hired during COVID. That's that so I'm one of the grandfathered in. But I love the people.
Yeah,
And I do think we have a really good culture of not wanting people to work their fingers to their bone and recognizing how important families are and things of that nature. So I think that, the recruiters have a lot to be able to sell candidates. Of course, it always varies on the position. Maybe you have a lower budget than you want to work with, but we have great benefits. We have a lot of opportunity for growth. Our internal hire rate is somewhere around 40%. So there's a lot of mobility for people to come in and grow here, which I think is enticing, especially for those earlier in their careers. Um,
I
and
love
I
that.
can't remember the second part of your
Yeah,
question.
just in terms of, like, the employer branding and, like, just thinking about the different you almost like the different cultures you're recruiting into, are you having to adapt, like, the way that you're marketing positions? Is that included in the recruitment enablement as well in terms of, like, how you're selling the positions? I hate using that word, but
Yeah,
how you, like, outreaching
yeah.
to candidates?
Definitely, that was part of and it was very eye-opening, and I'm not gonna remember which country was because I did this a year and a half ago, and then I've been able to kinda just pass it off, but it might have been Romania, where the HR person there was saying that candidates want to be reached out to, um, and they will respond to you. But they won't just go apply to the role.
Hey.
And I can't remember all the it was very interesting to me. So if you're filling a position there, you're gonna wanna reach out to them on LinkedIn or wherever, but they're likely to respond. And then they have, in that country, there's a lot more people that like to work contract over full time. We have, so one of the questions we asked when we did that was, what do candidates want? What's most important? And then how do we stack up on that? So some of the countries we recruit in, the benefits are incredibly important, or they're not because you have your country benefits. So it really varied, and I can't remember it all because, like I said, I did that a year and a half ago. But that does vary wildly. And then we do have different pieces of content so that assets for the recruiters to share with candidates in different locations. And for that, we work with our employer branding team, which sits under the TA umbrella. So we work closely with them, and they can help us get the recruiters what they need for the different locations because yeah, it's we're different strokes for sure.
What about in terms of, like, your team's retention? I just did a poll yesterday on LinkedIn, just asking recruiters. It's actually in response to that GEM, TA report, just asking
Hmm.
recruiters, how they feel kind of generally with, like, their workload and the support that they have, and there's kinda mixed results, but just curious, like, with your team, like, have you noticed, like, more retention with the team? I guess, just I would
Yeah, we
imagine
have
that they would feel
very
very
little
supported.
turnover.
Yeah.
We have very little turnover. I'm trying to think. I mean, recently one of the guys on our team went to another role he stayed at Sage, but he did move to another role internally. But I mean, knock on wood, I don't think we're probably really close to you know less than five. I mean, we're low. We're not losing people now, mind you. It doesn't mean that this is like the dream place to work and they're all beyond thrilled and, running across rainbows and singing all the time. Of course, it's still tough work. We ask a lot of our recruiters. Our systems aren't entirely where we want them. So, it's not perfect, but we are trying to get it there. And I don't think it's perfect anywhere. But I also think there's probably something to be said for the fact that in the market, there's also not that many opportunities, I would think, right? And I'm sure that has to have been apparent in the GEM paper or the GEM
Yeah.
because there's not that many opportunities. Like we said, the recruiter size is shrinking in most companies. And so I feel like if you get in good somewhere and you're happy and you're supported and paid well and got benefits and, really like the people you work with, I think people are gonna sit tight.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. What about in terms of anyone who's out there that's thinking about, like, recruitment enablement for either themselves as a career path or even just looking to implement, some of this support into their own team.
Hmm.
Um, what I guess what advice would you have for people to kind of get started with that? And even if someone's looking for, to kinda go that direction in their career, like, what advice would you have for them in terms of, like, how to network and how to find some of these opportunities? And what type of people do you think do well with these roles? Because I can imagine not, like, I think of myself, like, it's not necessarily how I'm wired. I'm definitely more I think I'm more sales focused as a recruiter, so a lot that's probably why I stayed agency so long. But
Yeah.
kind of what advice, like, what types of things would you
Hmm.
look at and
Yeah.
individuals think, "Yeah, you know what? You'd actually be pretty successful in a role like this."
Hmm. I think I think you have to have either I'd say a curiosity almost for like questioning why do we do it that way? Why can't we try it this way? Wouldn't it be better if we did that? I think you need to be someone who I have joked before about how I'm in this role and I'm the way I am because I'm lazy, essentially, that I want to do more with. I want to put in the least amount of effort and get the most out of it. And so I don't want my time wasted clicking into 14 different things if I don't have to. So it's not really laziness, but I do think there's something to be said for just wanting kinda always trying to figure out how could things be a bit better. I also think for enablement specifically, there's definitely a big training piece of it. So, training the recruiters, constantly upskilling. So in order to do that, and my team, we have to constantly be out there figuring out what's coming, what's new, what are other ways that companies are doing things, what are other things that people are doing and having great success with, and then how can we take that back and share it with the
What's your go-to for, like, resources? Like, how have you
well, we have
where do you
social
go to?
talent. We
Yeah.
do have social talent, and I love it. It's a great resource. I've definitely spent time in LinkedIn Learning, and honestly, sometimes it's just how can I better use like Teams and Office? Like I find myself looking for stuff too long. How can I save time? I also am, as many conferences I can go to, I will. So I'm going to the Rec Ops conference in Chicago in October. I was lucky enough to go to RecFest in the UK in July, and I was able to speak there. And in fact, the topic of my talk there was exactly what you just said. And I'd be happy to share the deck with anyone if they're really looking to figure out how to do some enablement on their team. My topic was, essentially do it yourself enablement. So how do you implement enablement when you don't have an enablement team? What are
Mm.
things that you as a manager or even a recruiter could start doing to bring it onto your team? And so in it I talk essentially about three main things, but training, hiring manager training, recruiter training, creating content, having an asset library, one place for everything. Those are really pretty easy things to start doing. And so you could definitely do that without an enablement team. The other thing that I think would possibly come from it would be the ability to sell it to your manager or to your team lead, your VP of your org to say, look, I've only done these couple of things and everyone's really happy about it, or it's saving us time. Like, can we invest in giving me more time to do these kinds of things, or make a list of all the things that need to happen, but no one has the time to do it? That might be another option. And then in terms of learning, like I said, I definitely, podcasts like this, the webinars there's so many. That's the bigger problem is how do you have time to watch and consume all the content that's out there for us, especially in TA. I feel like there's a lot. And then I've also reached out to random people. Truly, and no one I've ever reached out to has said no to me. So I will find someone on LinkedIn, or I'll see them on a podcast, and I'll love what they talked about, and I'll say, "Hey, I just saw you on that podcast. I would love to pick your brain if you're open to it."
I
And
love that.
everyone is just, yeah, they're so gracious. A couple people I met when I went into London, I knew I was going to have some free evenings, and I reached out to two enablement professionals in London and said, "Would you want to get a drink?" They both did. Just
See, now I'm thinking you need to start a, recruitment enablement, community.
well, do you know Adam Gordon
Oh,
with
yeah,
Post for?
yeah, I know Adam, yeah.
I feel like he's kind of he's all over that. So I don't know that that I need to do that. Um,
Uh,
he's got what 200 interviews with people talking about enablement, and
yeah.
he does have an enablement group on LinkedIn. I'll have to ping him because I haven't really seen much come out of that recently. They were doing some interviews, and now they haven't been. But like I said, on that deck, I give some resources. I give some examples. I show an example of our SharePoint so that people aren't like, "Oh, I could never build that. I had to learn how to do it, and if I can do it, anyone can do it." And now, thankfully, I've got, a couple people on my team. We were able to do everything we need to do to keep that up. We're constantly having to audit it, see what can get taken out, what needs to be updated, and then what are we missing? And for that, we do constantly say to the recruiters, "What else? What do you need?
I
How
love
can
that.
we help? How can we support you?" We do monthly calls with the recruiters. We try not to overwhelm them with constantly emailing updates and changes and things they need to know about. So that's probably one of my biggest challenges right now is figuring out how to communicate, but not over communicate, not drown them. And, the change management piece, I definitely have not cracked the code on that yet. Adoption, driving adoption to new ways of doing things. Those are the things I'm hoping to figure out.
And I think that's just a massive challenge, I think, with whatever team you're working with, right? Like, just,
Hmm.
I think we just I don't know whether it's recruitment specific. I do think it does happen a lot with recruiters, but just across the board, I think we just get into a pattern and a routine of
Just
doing
kind of set in
things,
your ways. Yeah.
set in our ways, and that it's always that question, like the what's in it for me. I think the more you can answer that for people, the better. But even then, like I just remember one specific example of getting a new ATS at one of the agencies I was working at, and this recruiter he'd been in the agency for 2 decades. He's great
Hmm.
biller, just great network, but he's just so frustrated with, like, the new way of doing things, and, he was, like, literally stacks of paper resumes in his cubicle, and, I just remember him just being like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna there's no reason I need to do this," and it just really irritated, the leader, and I just thought, "Wow, if you can figure out how to help someone like that change and kinda show them how it can be better for them, like you
Like a
said, you
growth
cracked the
mindset.
code."
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I remember still things. I might hear you say one thing. I'll go through a conference. If I hear one thing that I can come back and try. So, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, it was a Zig Ziglar course, I want to say, on
Mm,
selling. And it was something about how to leave a message. And so, one of the things they said, this whole long message, but the piece I really liked about it was let me know if you'd be open to even just an exploratory conversation. I still know this
mm,
by heart. I said it a trillion times. I was like, "Ooh, I love that. I'm gonna do it tomorrow." And I started, and I actually had somebody call me back just to say they liked the message, but I didn't make that message up. I heard it from someone else, and I thought, "That sounds really good, and I'm gonna use that."
it's
Or
huge.
like Stacy Zaper at another conference was talking about Friday feedback blitzes and making sure that no one goes into the weekend without hearing from you, even if it's just to say, "This is a no update, but have a great weekend," and you're still in the process. And so little things, I just need to hear one little thing and I'm like, "That's a great idea. I'm gonna try that." So,
So true.
I think we just all need to be open to it for sure.
No, yeah, and I love that too. It's usually the little changes.
Mhm.
One thing I've been thinking about a lot more too is just a mentor of mine. He said, it's not just following up; it's like following through with people. And we have
True.
so much tech nowadays. I feel like we have more tech than we've ever had before.
Mhm.
But there's still these like communication lapses. Like relationships aren't necessarily as easy to build, but people who can build those really strong relationships and their brand is uh, following through with what they say, it's huge, and
Mhm.
especially in recruitment. Um, I know that just candidate experience still remains a
Oh,
challenge for a
so
lot of
important.
companies.
Yeah.
Even though we have so much tech, and I just think it's easier nowadays to get a hold of people or to send a message, send a text message, email, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but still, we have issues. So I think it's being open to those new ideas is huge. And I think just trying to get better at our jobs, because
Mhm.
this is one thing I've been thinking about a lot. Where I think everybody, not just in HR and recruiting, but a lot of people are worried about AI, what it's going to displace. And I'm like, instead of worrying about what it's going to displace, worry about doing the best job that you can. Because what will happen is if you're not doing a great job, and this is one of the fears I have of, especially with candidate experiences, think we don't want to lose our job to like an AI recruiter that's screening people. We always say, yeah, we
Totally.
want to talk
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
human. But if we're not doing a great job, then we're not incentivizing people to wanna talk to us. So it's
No,
just
for
thinking about that, right? Like, don't worry about what it's gonna take, worry about doing the best job that you can,
right.
because that's really the best job security that we have.
Well, and I think of course that's all we hear about right now is AI, and at conferences it's on 90% of the agendas. But the one thing I think, sure, it's going to take parts of our job and let it have it. Those are the parts we don't want anyway. But I feel like the piece that is so important in recruiting, and when you see people going off on LinkedIn, what are they complaining about? They're complaining about being ghosted. They're
Yeah.
complaining about not getting feedback, So, like, I think what we as recruiters need to do is figure out how to do more with less. Let AI do what it can for us, and then really double down on the human department. You know what I mean? Treat people the way you would want to be treated. Treat people the way you would want them to treat your daughter or your son out on an interview, and know that they're going into a weekend and they're really freaking out about, are they going to get this job or not? Don't you think they'd want to hear from you? So, like, I really feel like just in general, we all need to be more human, and if AI saves us time to do that, then great. And I'm all for it for sure.
I love it. So you got Rec Ops, you got Rec Fest. Anywhere else you're going to be out and about
I'm
in
gonna do it.
2025?
So in Michigan,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
Jim Sackett does the Michigan recruiting
love it.
conference, and I've gone to it probably 3 times, I'd say. And so it's in Detroit this year, but Stacy Zaper, that session was at the Michigan Recruiting Conference several years ago, and like I said, that was super impactful to me. I took so many of her tips, so I'm really thrilled to go to that. That's at the end of October, and I'm gonna speak at that one. In fact, it's probably gonna be the same content that I did in the UK, because it's not gonna be the same audience, and I think it's people do want to know, how can I start implementing some
Huge.
enablement? So it'll probably be like very similar to the deck that I used for that, the do it yourself, start implementing enablement even if you don't have a team. And like I said, I would be happy to share that with anyone that wants it. I don't know if there's a way to, if they want to LinkedIn at me or something, and I'm happy to share it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the best place for people to reach you? How can people reach out to you? And is there anywhere
LinkedIn,
else that
yeah.
you're doing content? LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's really the only place. I used to have a Twitter 1,000 years ago, but then it switched to X, and I was like, I can't be bothered. So it's pretty much. But so, yes, definitely LinkedIn. And yeah, like I said, I really think the community has been great for me, helping me learn. So I'm always happy to return the favor. And I certainly have had a few people reach out and say, hey, I'm going to start doing this. Would you talk to me? And I always do, because, like I said, no one ever said no to me, which was really it just, again, just makes you happy to know that we're working with people that want to help each other, get better and do more.
I love it. I mean, I reach out to a lot of HR leaders right now, and that's pretty much at the end of every call. They'll say things like, "Hey, if there's anything I can do to help, if there's
Mhm.
anyone I can connect you up with, if there's any way that I can bring value to your network, let me know." I think that's huge, and just being able to pay that forward. So I always say, if you want to reach out to Molly, find her on LinkedIn, but
Mhm.
just be patient as well. She's not like me hanging out on LinkedIn all day. And then just say, "Hey, heard you on the podcast." That does go a long way as well. And then I'm gonna look forward to meeting you in real life at RecFest. Super excited for that.
Oh, I'm
And
not going to Wreckfest.
oh,
I'm
you're
going
not
to
going to RecFest. You went to
No,
RecFest in the
no, I went
UK.
to Wreckfest in the UK, so that was in July,
All
but
right,
the Wreckfest conference is the week before Wreckfest in
got it.
Chicago, so I'm going to that. I know, so I'm gonna
Maybe I'll
make
try and sneak down there because I'm right
you
in.
should.
I'm only an
It's
hour
so
north.
great. You
Yeah,
should.
I'll
It's
have to.
really great.
I'll get a hold of the team there and see if I can go down. Well, guys, it's been another great episode. Anyone who has made it this far, this is who we make the podcast for. So you're the special listeners. Anyone else that cut out early, they won't even get to hear this part. But well, it's been amazing having you on the show. Super, just super excited to listen back on this episode as well. And I'm really excited just to see where recruitment enablement, talent acquisition enablement goes. I think it's a field that it's going to become more and more relevant, especially, as these TA teams get leaner and they want to get more effective. So I'll be
I
keeping
hope
an eye
so.
out.
I
Yeah.
hope
And,
so.
and I'm going to wait for you to start that community as well.
Okay. All right. All right. No
Not that you don't
problem.
have anything else to do.
Yeah, in my
Uh,
spare time, for sure, I will. But no, thank you for having me. This has been great. It's been a lot of fun. It's always good to talk shop for sure.
Definitely. And for anyone else, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to www.therealistrecruiter.com. And we'll be back next week with another episode. And if you want to be a guest, you want to sponsor, let me know. Just DM me on LinkedIn and we can chat. So thanks again, Molly. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon.